Live filters in Affinity Photo can be used to fix your images or even make creative new effects. How do they work? Well, let's check them out. What's up guys, it's Trent, and today we're talking about live filters in Affinity Photo. Now this is going to be a general overview of the concept, and then I'll dedicate future videos to specific filters themselves. Now in Affinity Photo, there are actually two types of filters, what I call the regular filters and then the live filters. So let's take a look first at the regular filters. And these are accessible here under the Filters menu. Now this is the old method of using filters, and this is going to be destructive to our image. Let me show you an example of what I mean. Let's select something like blur here, and I'll choose Gaussian blur. And you can see it has this extreme effect on my image, but I can control it here with the slider. There's also these visibility options here, so I can view the filter side by side to see kind of before and after. Or I can do them next to each other too. But I'll just go back to the regular view. Now I'm applying this filter to this layer here. When I click apply, you can see there's no real options here to go back and change this effect. So once you do it, it's essentially permanent. The only thing you can really do is Control Z to undo it, but that's obviously a little inconvenient. So these options here are the original way of applying filters. They're going to make permanent changes to the layer we apply them to. Now let's look at live filters. And the difference between live filters is that we can toggle them on and off and even adjust them later on. So in other words, they're going to be non-destructive. So I'll select this image here, and the live filters are in the menu down here. You can see it says live filters. They're also available in the layer menu here under new live filter layer, but I'll use this method over here. So I'll click this button, live filters. And let's do the same one I did before, Gaussian blur. And you can see I can change the effect here. So I'll close this box. Now you notice something different over here. The filter I applied is a child of this layer here. And I can actually toggle it on and off. Not only that, but I can click on it and I can change the settings. So if I want to dial down the blurriness, I can do that. I always have that option of going back and changing it. One other cool thing we can do with live filters is add a mask to them. So I'll add a mask here. I can see the mask got added up there. I'll drag it over the live filter layer. And the mask is a child of my filter. And if I have a brush selected and I select the color black, this will suppress the effect of the filter. So I can paint it in here. And you can see where I've painted onto my mask, the filter is not taking effect. If I alt-click on the mask, you can see this is what I painted there, so I'll click back. So it's another nice feature of live filters that we didn't have in the other filters. Let me delete this mask. Technically, the filter itself is a mask, so you can actually paint directly on it, so I'll do that. It's kind of like an adjustment layer in that sense. You can use the layer itself as a mask, and you can see the mask applied there. But I generally like to add my masks separately, but it's kind of up to you which way you want to try it. Now, if you look at all the filter options, there's different groups. I'll show you one example from each group. This top one is the blur group, and we already looked at an example from there, the Gaussian blur. The next group here is the clarity group, so let's look at the clarity filter. Now, some of these clarity ones can be a little subtle. I'll zoom in so you can see it well. Let me apply the strength. I'll toggle on and off so you can see the effect. So this is off, on. Off, on. So these are going to be the sharpening and clarity filters. Next we have the distort filters, and there's a lot of very different options here that let you do many different effects. I thought I'd look at the spherical one here, so let's check that one out. So I have this brick wall texture here. What if I want to make this look like a sphere? Well, what I could do is I can increase the radius, and I can increase the intensity. And you can see it's almost like I'm creating a sphere here out of my texture. I'll close that. And there are many ways I could get rid of the outer edge here. I could mask it, or I could just clip it into a circle. So let's do that. I'll draw a circle. And what I could do is I could take my image and drag it into the ellipse. And I could place it correctly. And now I easily created a brick sphere that I could easily use in some other artwork. And this can be done with other textures as well. Metal, wood, plastic, whatever you want. Next we have the noise group, which can be used to add noise or even remove noise or dust and scratches. Let's say I have this image here and I want to make it look a little more retro. I could zoom in and I could add some noise to it. So here's the control. I can increase it here. You can see it starts to look a little more like a grainy photograph when I do that. So it's a pretty cool effect for making your images look a little more retro. Now there's another filter called dust and scratches, which is actually for removing dust and scratches. At first I thought maybe it was for adding them, which is kind of an effect some people want, but let's look at how this one works. Dust and scratches. So you can see my image has some damage to it. If I increase the radius setting on the dust and scratches, it'll go away. So you have to be a little careful with this one because it's going to add some blurriness to your photo. It's just essentially taking the average value around the pixels to fill in those white spaces. But you can adjust the settings and play it by eye to see what looks good. Now say you have something like a major scratch like that. This filter isn't going to help out too much with that. Probably what you're going to want to do is use the in-painting brush tool. So I'll select that. I'll select in-painting brush. So I'll just paint over it. And it goes away. So that's a better tool for a bigger scratch like that. If you want more details on how that tool works, be sure to check out my video on the touch-up tools. Next, we have the color effects here. And on this image, I'll do the vignette. A vignette effect is going to slightly darken or lighten the edges of your photo. It's going to help put some more focus to the middle of your photo. So I can change the exposure here. You can see that's how bright or dark it is. So if you go negative, it's going to be dark. If you go positive, it's going to be bright. Usually people do dark. So the scale controls the size. The shape, you can make it more elliptical like that. Or you can make it more circular. Now I actually added this filter above the image, but that's perfectly fine. You can also put it inside of it. And that's one of the benefits of these filters. You can move them around as you wish. And also notice that I have the noise filter and the vignette filter. So both of them are working together. And I can toggle one off and leave the other on, or vice versa. So if you're familiar with adjustment layers, you'll find that these filters behave very similarly in how you can move them around and arrange them. Now in this bottom group, we have the lighting options. So I'll click lighting. And you can see this one is quite sophisticated, but it's a really great way of adding spotlights or some type of lighting to your image. You can change the cone of light here. You can easily position it. You can change the angle. So it's a very detailed tool. I won't go into all of it here, but you can see there's lots of options for you to play with. So if live filters are so great, should you always use them instead of the old filters? Probably most of the time you should use the live filters, but there are a couple good reasons to use the old filters. First, there are a couple filters that aren't available yet as live filters. For example, if you go to detect, some of these edge detection ones aren't there yet. So something like this isn't there. So if a filter isn't in the live filters, you probably want to use the old filter method. Another reason is that if your document has dozens and dozens of live filters, it might slow your computer down a little bit as you're editing. In that case, you may just want to apply one of the old filters because it doesn't constantly have to run these calculations to update your screen. But that's pretty rare. Probably if your computer is fairly decent, you won't have problems with a couple live filters running. Now, one of the really cool filters is this halftone filter here. My next video will be on this halftone filter, so be sure to subscribe if you want to be notified when that comes out. Of course, if you have any questions on this video, feel free to leave a comment below. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.